Mike Dawson,
I'm here.
Tom McDonald,
Good.
Jennifer Finley. Here. Jim Molitor. Carol Lankford. Danielle Matt. Big Matt. James Steele Jr.
Una.
Martin Charlo. Len Titi.
I'm here. One, two, three. Bing, will you give us a prayer this morning, please?
My name is Cullen Sutton. We thank you, Creator, for the blessings that you have given us. We thank you, Father, for watching over those that lost loved ones, Father, Lord, and we ask you that you give them strength to deal with the loss of their loved ones. Father, we ask that you watch over our grandchildren, our children, and our elders, Father, Lord. And just thank you for everything that you do for them. Father, Lord, give us direction here today at council today and help us do the things that we have to do for our members. And thank you for the weather that we have, Father Lord. We just thank you. Everything that you do with water and what, we just thank you for your blessings. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Bing. We have minutes from August 7th and August 12th. We'll go to August 7th. James.
Yeah, on the August 7th minutes, page 1. I wasn't sure what Chuck Matt's dad's name was. I was wondering if we should put, Chuck Matt informed council that his father was a metal sculptor. Maybe it's in this paperwork here. Mr. Chairman, on that page 1, Chuck Matt informed council that his father, J.E. Marple Matt, M-A-R-P-L-E, Matt, basically John Earl Matt, but he goes by, his nickname was Marple, M-A-R-P-L-E. Thank you.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yeah, I would just like to add to the minutes, it says members absent Jennifer Finley, that I was attending the State Tribal Economic Development meeting in Billings.
Thank you, Jennifer. Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I just reading the minutes here, I've seen that Ernie Moran came in executive session and talked about his employment issue. I would like to schedule additional time and have a discussion on this, and hopefully we are able to address his issue. That I know it's kind of a difficult one because there's really no documentation, but I've always thought of Ernie as as one of our valued employees. He's got a lot of integrity, and if he's telling us these things that happened, I take his word for it, and I think we need to just make things right with him. And but anyway, I would like to set time aside to have personnel, and I'm thinking it's his department head, and I think the workers that he addressed this issue at the time are no longer employed at those, so it'll probably be just personnel and natural resources department head and Ernie.
Any other additions or changes to the minutes? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we did a secondary action for the contracting, to review the contracting language, or tribal member businesses, and it's not in there, but I'd like to maybe make that motion again today. Yeah, to appear today's action, if council would entertain that.
Anything else?
Motion to approve the August 7th, 2025 minutes with corrections.
Motion by James to approve the August 7th minutes, second by Tom. All in favor? Got 6-4 and Jennifer abstains. We have an agenda for today. Any additions for the agenda?
Did we need to do the 12th minutes?
Oh, we do. You're
Sorry,
right.
sorry,
Thank you,
Mr.
James.
Chair.
We'll go to the August 12th minutes.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, on page 16 of 21, I sent Abby I took my comments in there and changed it up a tiny bit. Nothing real substantial, I guess would be the word, change. So it pretty much says the same thing. I just changed it a little bit. Motion to approve the August 12th, 2025 minutes with corrections.
Motion by James to approve. Tom, go ahead.
Just one point of clarity to add, state of Idaho in the, I think the second sentence when we're talking EPA, reflecting our Aboriginal land. Thank you.
So we got a motion by James to approve the August 12th minutes. Can I get a second? Second by Tom. All in favor? We're unanimous. We have an agenda with one walk-in. Anything else for the agenda?
Yeah, I have something.
Okay. Tom?
Oh, and then,
Yeah. I'd entertain a motion. Jennifer? Jennifer has one, and you'll make the motion? Motion by Jen to accept the agenda with additions, second by Tom. And that's an issue. All in favor? We're unanimous. Oh. Morning, Casey. I guess you're up.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of council. I am apologize I can't be there in person. I'm actually in the field today. I would have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Brian Chaffin, who's the Executive Director of the Clark Fork Coalition. I've had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Chaffin since my days at the University of Montana. And during my time here at CSKT, Dr. Chaffin's been a great partner. He's taken the opportunity to bring several of his water rights classes and other classes from the University of Montana up to the reservation to not only learn from us, but also to perform service projects while they're up here, whether that's pulling weeds, picking up trash. He always makes an effort to try to return the favor. So certainly appreciate that. Dr. Chaffin recently reached out to me about an opportunity with some interest in involving our tribes in a lot of the efforts that they're working on there at the Clark Fork Coalition, including a recent event, which sounds pretty neat. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Chaffin to speak on that. So thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Chapman.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Casey and members of council. Thanks for taking a moment to hear me today and for entertaining me as a walk-in. I'm the executive director of the Clark Fork Coalition, as Casey mentioned, and our organization is a watershed conservation organization that's been around since 1985, so not very long really, in the grand scheme of things. But we were founded to respond specifically to the dumping of toxic pollution in the Clark Fork River at the Smurfit Stone container site, which I know you've spoken about in council many times. And our mission has evolved to protect and restore the Clark Fork River watershed. And I know that the work that we do has a lot of overlap for the interests that you have and that tribal members have. And I'm here to present to you just a couple projects where I know we have overlap. And to invite you to an event this weekend, and I apologize for the last minute invitation, but also just to listen and to just express that I want to be a better partner and ally to the tribal interests in the watershed moving forward. I'm new to this role. I've only been in the role just over a year. And as Casey mentioned, I was a professor of water policy and natural resource policy at the university prior to that. I'm really honored to be able to have just a couple minutes to speak with you. The first thing I'd like to say is this weekend in Missoula on the river from 10 to 1, we are hosting an event that we're calling Rise Up for the Clark Fork. And it is really just an opportunity to celebrate the river, celebrate the clean water and the health of the river that has improved over the last 100 years since the dumping of toxic mine waste from the Butte area. And we're asking the community to gather and to float with us from East Missoula through town to a place called Silver Park. And I would like to humbly invite any of you and the tribe to join us. It would be wonderful. I know it's short last minute, and I apologize for that. I have some flyers to leave you. But it's really just an opportunity to celebrate how the river is part of our community and that it is a part of all of our lives, and to join in kind of celebration, but thinking about the future of protecting and restoring the river as well. The other two things that I just wanted to mention while I was here is we've worked closely with staff in the Natural Resources Department, specifically in the water and legal and water division, but then also folks in the legal department around a couple really important issues. One, the Milltown water right in the upper Clark Fork River Basin. We have for the last 20 years tried in earnest to secure senior water rights and to excuse me, the word I'm looking for is transfer those senior water rights from things like agriculture, industry, and mining to in-stream flow to protect critical bull trout habitat, to protect creeks and tributaries that are important to supporting the main stem Clark Fork River, and to having them flow from their high mountain lakes all the way to the Clark Fork mouth all year round. And so we've been really successful in some creeks and rivers in that area, getting more in-stream flow. And that's one of the projects that we work on constantly up there. And in doing that, we hope to support the Milltown water right and the tribe's water right up there. And anything that we can do to be better partners and to increase projects and increase our impact up there, I'd love to hear about that and just be open to doing those things. And then the other project I'd just like to speak about is our relationship with Mary Price and Chris Stark, who's here as well, on the Smurfit Stone container site. We recognize that there is toxic waste on the floodplain, that the river has been fragmented from that place, and we are working hard to clean the contamination, restore the floodplain, connect the river, and restore that place in a way that tribal fishing and hunting rights can be utilized, and that the river is protected as a part of that resource as well. And so anything that we can do to be better partners in that, I would love to do that. And I'm just thank you so much for your time and the ability to introduce myself and say that we're here and willing to work hard together to see some of those things happen. And I also come bearing a gift of chocolate chip cookies.
Chocolate chip cookies are always good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brian. That's good to hear all of that. Appreciate that kind of work. Anybody got, Mark? Go ahead, James.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming. Yesterday we, I think the chairman and vice chairman traveled with the Region 8 gentleman. What's Western?
Cyrus Western.
Yeah, Cyrus Western. He was here yesterday. It was, I think for me, looking at the news, and I think for all of us, the absolute gutting of staff and all the different federal agencies, particularly EPA, is a big concern. It's no secret that this administration has a desire to just completely eliminate the Environmental Protection Agency. And I can't think of, I don't have my notes in front of me, but the office of, what was it? Basically the office that approves all the different chemicals that are in our system, our proposed chemicals. That office was completely basically done away with. And then as George Orwell 1984, let's change the name of it and just call it the Applied Sciences of whatever. And I asked him, is this going to do the same thing, or what is this? And he really didn't have any answer. And I understand that's in DC, but we see that in the Environmental Protection Agency, that it's being gutted. We see, just name the agency, and it's being gutted. From your group's efforts, what are some of the things that we in our partnership can be trying to do? I saw something on social media yesterday. A person was making a comment from Montana on a political post. He said, okay, contact your representative. We always talk about that. And that person said, I've tried calling my senator. I've tried calling my congressperson. I've tried calling the governor. I've tried none of it. I don't get response from anybody. And so in light of that, what are some of the strategies you've all discussed internally or as your board to try to, what can we do in this crazy environment of this authoritarian dictatorship that we're witnessing now? The big proposal is to do away with the name of the JFK Center and call it the Donald Trump Performing Arts Center. So yeah, I see the look on your face is the way I feel about that as well. So anyway, I ramble, but my main point is, what are some things and strategies you've all talked about in terms of trying to protect these areas that we're concerned about, the area you mentioned, in light of what we're dealing with?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Councilman. Thank you. I think that what we're doing as an organization is just getting local as much as possible. And two examples that I'll give you is our water rights work on important bull trout streams across the Bitterroot, the Blackfoot, and the Clark Fork in particular. We haven't worked as much in the Flathead because you have a lot of staff that are doing really good work up here, and there hasn't been a huge need, and there's other organizations doing that, but we're always open to that. One of the things that we've been doing is working directly with landowners, directly with state agencies, county commissioners, local agencies, to say, how can we pool our resources to work on this particular creek? And within the bounds of state water rights law, we can do that. We can find people that are willing to get a headgate replaced for their irrigation, and in exchange carve off, we save water when we replace headgates, and we save water when we replace irrigation infrastructure, and we can carve that water directly out into in-stream flow that we can protect all year long for bull trout and other fish species. So it's working hyper local directly with the streams. We have a staff of 14 now. So we're in the field every day. We're monitoring, as your water department does here on the reservation and beyond. we're monitoring tributary streams that the state doesn't and the feds don't, right? And so we have data and information that we can bring to people's kitchen table and say, this is what we can do for win-win projects, both for fish, wildlife, and for the people that live here and have lived here. So that's one thing. And then at Smurfit, the thing that I would say is we're interested in working with you directly to produce a vision and images. What could this place look like? And bringing that to the community. What I feel very similar to you in that we get a lot of bad news every day. And what I want to do with Smurfit is bring to the community a vision of something better. And I think that will bring the community along. And when the EPA and or the federal government says, no, we're not going to fund this, no, we're not going to do this, they can't argue if the entire community wants something. And so it may be a little pie in the sky and it may be a little naive, but I think we can do it
Yeah,
at
I
that side.
appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for your work and thank you for coming in today. Just everything you described is utterly super work and so much education out there that's needed. And a lot of times if you just let people know, give them the information, they will make the right decision. They will decide to live in balance. You know, they will treat the landscape and the water with respect. But a lot of folks just don't have that. Never been within those parameters. They just don't know. They're ignorant. So, you know, to have a community organization to be out there and advocate and implement and work with everybody is critical. More today than ever because of the shrinking federal and state environmental laws and protection measures. So you have my greatest gratitude for your work. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Any other remarks or questions for Brian? We sure appreciate you coming in and giving the report, and it's wonderful to have your coalition doing this work. It really is.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Please reach out anytime if there's something that we can do more together or something that you need. Is there a good place I could leave these and the cookies? Like, okay. Great. I'll leave these right here. Yeah, and if anybody would like to join us on Saturday, even to say a few words, or if there's someone you know that I should invite, that would be wonderful. I'd love to do that.
Thank you.
Do you have a flyer or something for that on Saturday? Yeah, she could maybe take it and. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a great day.
James, you were gonna have an issue.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I found out yesterday that so I'm on the Montana Budget Policy Center Board. And I've been vice president for that for probably 3 or 4 years. There is a possibility I might become the president of that in September, but the executive director called me and told me that our current president is going to step down in September from the presidency. So I told them if she's going through all the board members and seeing if anybody wants to be the president. If nobody wants to be the president, I'll be the president. So just informing you of that. And just wanted to say I appreciate council and the chairman nominating me for the at-large primary position for the SAMHSA TTAC. What happens now is when they get the letter, they give it to the what is his name? The Dr. So-and-so, the head of SAMHSA, and I can't think of what his title, assistant secretary or associate secretary, something. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, James. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up with the action we took with the tribal contractors to make the motion that we review the contracting language to maximize the opportunity for tribal member businesses and contractors to have preference and action.
Motion by Tom to look at basically all contracts to maximize the participation of our tribal contractors. Do I have a second? Second by James. All in favor? We're unanimous. And you got another issue, Tom?
Well, I do, and it's perfect for the folks that are before us. This particular one is trying to get ahead of what I call a future liability. And following up with the assistant secretary that was here earlier at the BIA, adding their assistance to make and move fee to trust. And I remember I was thinking about this with property before I've moved. My wife and I have moved personal property from fee to trust. And my father attempted to do that and paid the application fees and then paid for the phase studies, the environmentals, which I think he was well over nearly $3,000 for that. It all went for nothing, but those things term out. And there's people that have that, and we have a backlog of nearly 50 properties that the tribes have that need to be moved into fee to trust. And a lot of those have expired phase ones that we need to come up with the money again to do that. And trying to think of that, and then knowing after 5 years, once they're made application to do the fee to trust, that waiver of not paying that property tax expires, and then after 5 years, we have to start paying property taxes on those. We have this tremendous liability sitting there. So I wanted to make sure that the lands department, and I'm not sure if it's in this budget, if there's a needed increase to pay those additional phase one studies, that happens, that we have that funding in there. And then the second one was those tribal members that have made application, paid fees, with the promise from our lands department that all was going to occur, now have expired, and they either have to pay again, or we come up with that cost and pay for that. Because there was nothing there that said you had to come back and pay again. So I think there is today. I think they've now modified everything to say they're not even taking their money right now. Someone's making an application, so that obligation isn't necessarily the same. And they're holding off on them paying for phase one, those type of things. So that's all good news. But we have this backlog that needs to be taken care of. And we need to jump on as fast as possible this extending liability that we have for property taxes. So if we can push lands department to make those happen, and if they need more money in their budget, if it's not already there, we need to provide that money, because it's a good investment for us for the future. So I would just like to make sure that that's there. If we have some, if we need, an extra amount of money to do the phase ones, whatever that might be, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000, that should be in their budget. I know they probably can do it, 5 to 10 parcels in a year, maybe, I'm hoping. Right now we have 0. So I really like to at least make sure that that's not a limiting factor for a lands department to be successful in getting some movement. So that, and of course, I'm concerned about their staff too. So I don't know where to go with that, but I want to make sure at least they have the funding to be able to pay for the appropriate requirements that are necessary to make that movement. So I guess I would just maybe open that up to Ruth and Greg. Thank you.
Oh, I just love these conversations that are, critical and important issues regarding, and Greg just whispered to me, and it's exactly the response I was going to give him was, have they appropriately planned for this in their annual work plan? It's certainly not a new need. The issue on the budget side is when you're dealing with the fee to trust process, we don't expend the Bureau funds for that, because that's for the trust assets, for the trust management. So it's always a burden shouldered by a tribe. If we're going to do it on behalf of individual owners and for ourselves, then yeah, that's going to be a tribally funded burden. And the department should certainly have a clear plan to how to execute that. we've lost the person who was the principal expert on that. And that's why we've not seen the workload progressing on that. Yeah, if they would just come forward with something, then, and put, dollar cost to that, people effort to that. They may have to contract for that. They may have to do kind of a different levels of approach to that. It's a lengthy process, as you just pointed out. They have to have environmental assessments. They have to do, a lot of different steps to bring it through that process. And that has to be continually, worked on and monitored. There's also another issue on the trust side, and that's probate. We have this huge backlog in probate, and that had ought to be addressed as well. That is not a problem that's going to get littler if they don't address the backlog now. It came up in the trust evaluation. To my knowledge, there's still only one person handling probate. We used to have two. I don't know if they put other people assigned to do that, but that's pretty concerning as well. And that's holding up people's, literally money and property. They're set up to inherit and it doesn't move through and it just delayed.
James, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I would suggest that we have particularly Tony. I don't know if it's today, but he should be visiting with us, and I think we should be able to express the thoughts that Tom had talked about in terms of feet of trust. I'm almost of the opinion we set up a subcommittee of the council to directly be weekly on this issue to get it, some movement and traction on it. And Ruth brings up a good point, and I remember my last visit with AT&I, whatever month that was or year, this year, I guess. They had talked about, the ALJs, administrative law judges for probate are one for thousands of probates. And so it sounds like it's a compounded problem. We have shortage of staff, and the president's decided to get all the different staff needed. It was already understaffed and now it's extremely understaffed, but I think it's absolutely, I don't even know what word to use, that there's not been a feat of trust, anything done in years. I think we definitely need something done, and I feel like having Tony in here to talk to him about this and say, hey, we need you to get a hold of something with the lands department head. And so a plan of action, come up with a plan of action and give it to us. And I agree with Ruth. That's why we have this budgeting process. If they have that need, come to the budget committee and the budget process, Ruth and Greg, and say, hey, we have this need. Here's what we estimate we might need for that. But if they don't bring it to you all, it really, I think we as a council see the need. I've heard Tom bring it up a number of times in the last year and few months, and it's just not moving, and we've got to do something different. And so I would suggest that we have, I'd say primarily Tony and maybe Jordan in here for us to articulate this to them, to say, look, we need to have a plan of action here and give us some options on how to get something moving on this issue and probate. Are there some things that we internally can be doing? Do we need to, here's another idea. Do we need to go out there and poach an employee from somewhere, another tribe, from the regional office, and just go out there and get them and hire them on a contract and help us get this done? I mean, that's what they do in the corporate world. We need somebody, they go find them and, all right, we want you to come do a job for us. And we need that right now. So, anyway, just some thoughts and hearing the vice chairman's frustration on this issue. I agree. And those are my suggestions. Let's get those executives in here We pay them good money, let's get them to help us with this.
Jennifer?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Tom. And the fact that we have so many properties that haven't gone into trust, we're the second largest taxpayer in Lake County. And I got notification of my tax bill. My house value went up by $100,000. It went up last year and it went up again this year. And Greg, yours probably went up too. I mean, everybody who lives in
Yours went up.
Polson, I know, said, oh, my taxes are going up again and my house value just keeps like going up and so the tribe's tax bill is gonna go up too substantially. And to what extent? And where's that gonna come from in the budget? And have they planned for that? Cause that's gonna be a big hit to everyone.
And yet they blame us for all their problems. Sorry, I digress.
Jen?
Can we go into executive? for
Yes.
the next issue?
Yeah, thank you. I was just gonna say. I have this cloud up right.
Any other thoughts here? I guess the one question I have just back to this is it possible to establish a fund specifically targeted at these expenses and can't be used for anything else? Cause, it sounds like money right now is the holdup. Need to go in executive?
We can transition because we're gonna have our budget talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go out of regular into executive. And we will break for 5 minutes. Get into motion. 5 minutes.
Mike, who's up first?
Come on up, Michelle. Good morning. You'll come back to order.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce David Spear. He is gonna share a project idea they came to me with, and we're hoping you'll approve it. And then we'll get moving on it. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for seeing us. We wanted to just talk very briefly about the history of the program. So the book that we just handed to you is a book that was published about 10 years ago. And we're actually going to be doing a revision of it, which will include work in the last 24 years of our project, which will be our new milestone in January. Last year in June, 38 of our photographer students from Two Eagle River School's work was shown in New York City at an annual event called Photoville. It was an honor for them to be received there. We actually applied to show the work there, and it turned out to be really well received. There were about 20,000 people who got to see our students' work back there. When the work came down, the work was actually printed on these 4 by 8 foot mats, really huge pictures, kind of like the big murals that are behind you of the chiefs. And when the show came down, they sent them to us. And if you look at the color handout that gave you, the first sheet there is a portrait that one of our students made, and it was shown on the Photoville website. And if you go to the second page real quickly, this is the Charcusa story that showed and talked about it. And then we were able to get the panels sent out to us out here, and we were able to show, if you look at the third page, we were able to show that work last fall in the Big Fork Library. And I want to introduce you to Katie, who's sitting to our far right here. Katie was actually one of the students who got to go back to Photoville last year during the opening of the show and represented us. We had tried to get more students to go on that trip, but it happened kind of quickly and we weren't able to get people to go, but she was there and represented us. And I wanted her to maybe just take a couple minutes and talk about her experience back there and what it was like to have the work shown there.
Hi, my name is Katie Medicine Bowl. I was given the opportunity to go to New York and represent the Flathead reservation, and as well as see the show. The experience was surreal, you know, coming from the res. It was awesome. And seeing like all of my fellow classmates work alongside mine up there, and I got to see, you know, the people walking by admiring it, and bringing like a piece of the reservation to the city and showing our day-to-day life.
Anyway, so Katie's an up and coming photographer. Anyway, and she's actually at SKC for 1 more year, and then she's going to transfer to University of Montana photojournalism program. And we hope, as you probably know who Taylor Irving is, we're hoping that Katie is going to follow in her important footsteps in terms of being able to represent Indigenous people through her camera work. And we're here to ask if you would consider letting us hang the panels that we have from that show here in the complex up above the stairway here. So that's our request. We would be interested in having people see it. The scale of them is really pretty awesome. And when you're approaching and looking at these pictures, we've really had an incredible response to it. So that's our request.
Any thoughts? Jennifer?
Yeah, thank you for coming in, David, and congratulations on your work. I look forward to seeing all the other work that you continue to do. And thank you for all the good work that you do for our community, David, and thank you for putting the voices and the visions of students from here out into the world. and opening up the world to people from here. That's so important. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
James?
Yeah, I think you just to echo Council Lady Finley's comments, David. I think you've given, you know, some of our tribal young people an opportunity to go places they never thought they'd ever be. You know, New York. Some of them probably just heard of New York and, oh, okay, we've seen it in movies, but to actually have them be able to go there with you and some of the folks you work with, I think is such an amazing thing. And I remember when this came out, you know, this edition and seeing young people I know and family members I know that are pictured in here. So I definitely support your work and thank you for giving a part of your life and your experience to our community. Thank you.
Is there any objection to hanging all the photographs? Go
I
ahead,
just want to add, David, I think it's really important that we acknowledge the work that you've done over there at SKC. Okay. You have had positively impacted these kids' lives, and these are things that they're going to remember forever. I mean, to take the time to reach out to reservation kids, fly them all the way to New York, spend a week with them there. That's huge. And I always think about that. And ever since I've been on council, I know you've come in every year and giving us updates on that. But the work that you have done for our kids is just something. It's tremendous, and you need to know that. You need to hear that. Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
I don't hear any objection to putting up the photos.
All right.
I think that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Michelle. Good job, Katie. Joe, come on up. Tracy. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Tribal Council members. Thank you for your time this morning. We are here to follow up on a project that you approved for us a while ago. So as you recall, you approved us to initiate a program to reimburse tribal members who had opted into Medicare Part B to reimburse that premium cost to those tribal members who had opted in. So we've been doing that. We had an initial disbursement at the end of May, I believe. We are trying to capture and collect the information from those folks we missed in that initial disbursement, and plan to catch up those folks we missed in that early disbursement at the end of August. We're contacting folks to try to make sure we get them on that list that we will submit to tribal accounting. At this time, we want to talk to you about a possible expansion of that pool to include tribal member descendants and members of federally recognized tribes who are eligible for tribal health paid care. So as you recall, the THPC program is a budget we receive from IHS to pay for healthcare services that are not available under our roof. So the eligibility for that is residing on the reservation or in the CHISDA. So we're responsible for their healthcare costs if we can't provide that healthcare under our roof. And to do that, we use that tribal health paid care fund to do that. We believe expanding that pool and covering or helping them choose Medicare Part B, the overall impact would be a reduction on the impact on the paid care program. So we're here to see if there is an interest in us moving forward and expanding that pool to include tribal member descendants, members of federally recognized tribes who are eligible for the paid care program to receive that premium reimbursement. So that they would have to choose Part B. They would have to have paid funds in 2024, 25, wherever we do it, and then we would reimburse that cost. Similar to what we're doing with the tribal members.
Is there any guesstimate on what the savings would be?
I think Tracy's got a short slideshow. She can work through that, and I think that may answer some of the questions you may have.
I promise I'll get there. Can you see the screen?
No, Tracy, you're gonna have to go to the bottom where it says on Zoom. Make your
As I
Zoom
mentioned,
bigger.
my technical challenges of the world.
This up.
Okay. I'll share. Oh, look at you go.
There you go.
Ah. Good thing somebody knows how to do these things. This is not me. Okay. So the program objectives, to begin with, were to place benefits and program support to expand access to care, to provide the best possible healthcare outcomes for all tribal members. That's why Part B reimbursement came to be. Also to retain a higher percentage of PRC funds for tribal members who do not currently have insurance coverage in place and who have co-insurance charges when they seek care off of the reservation. Thirdly, to increase our opportunities for third-party billing revenues through all available channels for tribal health department. While that was an ancillary goal, it certainly is part of it. What I want you to do, no, Ender was working and you went to. Hang on. One moment, please. We have to go back. Don't touch that. Okay. Okay, but not at all. All right. So once people are registered and fully updated with tribal health, whether that's a CSKT member or a CSKT descendant or a member of another federally recognized tribe, if they have moved to the reservation, they have established residency, they are then qualified for this tribal health department to provide care if they come to clinics, but also we are tasked with paying for their care if we have to refer them for care that cannot be received within tribal clinics here. It's part of the PRC statutes. So whether they're a CSKT tribal member, a CSKT tribal descendant, or members of other federally recognized tribe, once they have established residency and are registered with tribal health, PRC funds must be spent on their behalf if they need care. So just like it made sense to cover people who were federal or members of CSKT, it makes sense to cover descendants and members of other federally recognized tribes to rein in the expense. So in 2024, I've given you 5 examples of expenses that have been paid on tribal members' behalf. Some of the people on this list are CSKT members, some are descendants, some are members of other federally recognized tribe because the expense is the same.
Okay, clarification. So, that's only if they have established residency on the reservation, correct?
They establish residency and then they have to register with tribal health. So they have to provide proof that they are a member of another federally recognized tribe. And they have to provide us with insurance information if they have any. But once they have done those things, then they are absolutely qualified for PRC funds to be spent by this tribal health department for the care they need, regardless of the expense of it. So the responsibility for PRC funds is exactly the same. Okay, so this is a smattering. This is not the 5 most expensive tribal members or descendants or members of other federally recognized tribes, but it makes the point. So you can see here that we have different ages and different diagnoses, but this is the amount of money that was spent on these 5 people in 2024.
We got a question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Joe and Tracy, for coming in. And of course, my position is if there's a way to save money and improve healthcare for our membership, I'm all about it. I am all about that for our descendants also. I am not necessarily all about that for members of other tribes. Keep coming and moving here. So my question is, what are the specific numbers of those clients that you have? What is your total population of each one of those segments? And then when you talked about the requirement, I really want to know what is our requirement. And of providing healthcare for descendants and members of other tribes.
Okay,
And what is the controlling factor of that and how we can modify that?
so PRC funds are allocated by IHS to this tribal health department to pay for care necessary. By their statutes, if a member of another federally recognized tribe lives within the CHISDA, or service area is a much better way to use that term, then tribal health, because the money gets allocated based on the fact that they live in this service area, tribal health then is required to pay for their care because IHS allocates funds based on not just members of CSKT living here, but all members of federally recognized tribes that live within CSKT's service area. So the responsibility and the liability to tribal health is exactly the same. Whether they're a CSKT member or a descendant or a member of another federally recognized tribe, once they have satisfied the registration process, then the IHS statutes and the PRC statutes require that their care be paid for through this service area.
The service area is the reservation exterior boundaries.
Actually, it extends up into Flathead County and to Sanders, west to Sanders County, and then down into Missoula County. Our service area butts up against All Nations service area in Missoula. So those two things border themselves, but it is not exactly the borders of the reservation.
So if All Nations service area went away, if that they ceased to exist, would we absorb their clientele?
Right. It did at one time, but up against them. So all tribal health departments, regardless of where they exist, have a defined service area. And if a member of CSKT moves to Wisconsin and lives within the service area of another tribe that accepts IHS allocations and that takes PRC statutes and uses them, then that tribe is required to provide the care and pay for it for the CSKT member, assuming that they have registered with that tribal health.
So the descendants, my understanding was some flexibility for descendants, like first generation, second generation, and that's something we could either accept or refine.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think there's some language in the compact that gives the tribe some authority to make those definitions. We could explore that further, and I think we can, Tracy, I don't know if we can pull this out.
Yep.
The number of descendants or the number of members of other federally recognized tribes that would actually be in that pool. I think we can pull that out. I don't know if you.
Oh, I have it on a slide. I just
Okay.
haven't gotten that part yet.
Oh.
Did you have
Go
a
ahead.
question that
Go
you
ahead,
wanted to
James.
ask now?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I know one thing we battled with IHS years ago was close social and economic ties. You know, if that member of another tribe had close social and economic tribes to our tribal people, you know, we would treat them a bit differently under our request. But they were battling with us because, no, you can't do that. But then we would say, well, Bemidji area is doing exactly this. And no, well, we can't do that. And so, you know, like my grandpa was Little Shell. He was enrolled Little Shell, but because of close social and economic ties, he was able to, get under the PRC. It wasn't PRC back then. It was
Right.
something else. Remember what it was called then, but
Contract healthcare, I think is what.
contract. Yeah. Contract. That's what I was.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks.
I think they change the names regularly just to confuse us. Okay, so the way my mind works, so this is what can be through benefits. I've shown you what got spent in 2024 on the previous slide. If those 5 people had benefits in place, and for some of them, these benefits can be placed post-diagnosis because of their AIAN status. Not for all of them, but for some of them. If I use the highest premium possible, and it's much higher than it needs to be, all told, we would have spent just under $60,000 for the care they received because of the AIAN statutes within marketplace coverage and because of the way Medicare works and the way we can manage that. So obviously, for all tribal members, the more management we can put in place of how this money gets spent, the better off the PRC funding becomes, because we're not spending $720,000 on care that could cost us $60,000. We're gonna skip right to the information you're looking for. So when we began Medicare reimbursement, we identified 1,985 possible enrollees in the Medicare reimbursement program. We mailed 2,042 letters because there was a little overlap and we kept running reports and we kept getting different numbers back. So we sent out 2,042 letters. We hosted 47 events. We did 173 individual appointments. We ran weekly Charcusta ads, daily radio ads. We had a dedicated phone extension and we took and returned thousands of phone calls. We began that process the third week of January. We completed 472 application packets. Those packets are done after we have gone through the DNQ process. You see that we DNQ'd 995 of our original 1985. That means that they either have someone else paying their Medicare Part B premium in that they have Medicaid, or they have other coverage. They may have group coverage that they're carrying because they're also covering a spouse and they're not at the point to convert over to Medicare yet. Some of them flat out refused, not a lot, but a couple. So we did 472 completed application packets. When we began this, we had not sorted out CSKT tribal members, descendants, and members of other federally recognized tribes. So in the beginning, we did some packets that were for people that did not qualify for the first reimbursement. We dispersed to 341 CSKT members in May of 2024. We have 81 more of them that we've found since the disbursement. And even though we put forth the effort we did, there were a fair number of people that said that they had never heard of this, they had not been contacted, and they didn't know that it was available. We have continued to pursue them the entire time. 51 of our original 1,985 are deceased. 94 of them, and only of the list of CSKT members, have had no engagement to date. So we've mailed them, called them, advertised to them. But they absolutely have not responded in any way, shape, or form. Short of driving all over the reservation and knocking on their doors, we're at a loss as to how to find or talk to these 94 people. They may just not want to talk to us. That leaves us with 349 descendants or members of other tribes to be determined and dispersed. And that is the request that we're here to make today. The original resolution that was signed was for $3,060,000. We have only, if we allocate all 349 descendants and members of other tribes, and certainly a fair number of those we will DNQ because they have Medicaid or they have other payer sources. But if we did it for all of them, our total disbursement ends at just over $1.8 million for the ones we've already dispersed and the ones we would disperse to. So we are not asking for more budget money. The budget exists, it's been allocated. We're asking to spend it on people that can cost tribal health a great deal of money.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, as a future liability for you and an ongoing liability, I did sign up for Medicare B, so I'm one of your future reimbursements.
Then we'll be talking to you in 2026, won't
Yeah.
we?
So I guess my question was how many eligible folks are there of the descendants that are of age? And-
Well, so the 349 that we're looking at, so people that qualify for Part B qualify under a number of ways. The vast majority of them turn 65. But we do have a significant number of disabled, all of them, CSKT members, members of other tribes and descendants. They qualify due to Social Security disability status, which inherently makes them expensive. They are unwell enough for Social Security to have deemed them disabled and to be paying them monthly for their living expenses. They don't get that way because they're healthy. Those are ongoing, expensive human beings. All Social Security disability recipients are. So this is a representation of some of the most expensive people that tribal health will deal with.
James, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. In a lifetime ago, I was an alternate resource specialist and younger and thinner and more handsome at that time. My question is, at that time, we were struggling with IHS at that time was telling folks, different parts of IHS inconsistently. You don't need Part B. And so we were battling at that time with trying to pay that penalty, get those folks that are these high cost folks on Part B and figuring out how to pay that premium. How has tribal health been about making sure tribal members are getting on that Part B when they're eligible rather than not signing up for it and incurring that penalty? Have we improved on that since way back when?
So, Mr. Chair, so this program encourages that. So they know if they sign up for it, the cost that is typically pulled out of their social security or they pay directly will be reimbursed. So this is one of those things that encourage them to do that.
So I'm hoping that the number's smaller than it was 25 years ago.
Yeah, so once we make contact with those individuals that maybe had denied it, we can work with them and use some of that direction they received from officials to not sign up. We can appeal that decision and try to remove the penalty cost if possible. Tracy's team does that, so they try to remove those penalty costs that we would do. In some cases, we pay a higher premium than they would have paid if they had just signed up when they were eligible to do so. So some of these costs are higher than the monthly premium if you just signed up because we're paying for that penalty cost.
Yeah, that penalty.
Yeah.
A quick follow-up, if I may, with the I apologize for my sarcasm, the grand wisdom of this new administration to make America great again or greater again. And their great grand wisdom, they've decided to attack the Social Security Administration and do away with field offices. And so in that great grand wisdom of this administration and those folks that supported this person, God forbid anybody in this room did that, but I digress. How are we going to make sure that particular impact upon the Social Security and what we're doing here as we, as we're trying to get these folks covered? I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm asking a question that can't really be answered because we don't know what those impacts are, but my fear is we're trying to get those folks covered on this premium and the penalty with the complete annihilation of staff in the federal bureaucracy, particularly Social Security Administration. How are we going to be able to help those folks? And additionally, I know when I was an alternate resource specialist, there was times I would take a client to the office and say, hey, I'll come get you. I remember going to Hot Springs, picking up some constituents and service folks that I needed there and bringing them to get the paperwork. And it just made it much more quicker to just let me just come get you. I'll go with you. We'll go to the Social Security office and let's work on that. And we had a really good relationship with both offices in Kalispell and Missoula. So I'm kind of concerned as to what that relationship's going to look like. Are they going to do like they did with the Forest Service? Region 1 is gone now. Are they going to do that with the Social Security Administration? We're going to be dealing with somebody out of who knows where, Spokane, like they're proposing with the Postal Service. I don't know, I'm being sarcastic, but also I'm just kind of concerned in that regard. Is that anything that you're seeing early on right now going to hinder this, what we're trying to do in the Social Security effort?
Sure. I'll answer it, and then Tracy can follow up. It's been challenging. One, the staffing cuts that have been implemented. Two, when you do get an opportunity to listen into some of their sessions, they can't say anything because they're in litigation, so they share very little. And we've been trying to track that. Tracy's tracked some of those webinars or those sessions where they talk about those impacts. So she may have more insight as to kind of what may be occurring in the future or how we might respond to that.
Thank you for the question, but I'd like to go back to your first question and then proceed forward if that's okay. So I am the alternate benefits program manager for tribal health. I have 21 years' experience of filing for Social Security, Disability, Retirement, and SSI on behalf of lots of different people. I am a licensed insurance agent. I specialize in the Medicare secondary space, but I'm a licensed health and life insurance agent. My department helps tribal members file for VA benefits, all Social Security benefits, Medicare, Medicaid as it interacts with Medicare, and 16 other benefit programs that emanate from outside of tribal health. The point being that everything that a tribal member has earned and qualifies for from outside of tribal health then mitigates the expense that tribal health incurs on their behalf. So if we can all agree that times have changed, both in the very recent past and since you were an alternate resources manager, I file for Social Security benefits on a daily basis for tribal members, whether that's an under 65 filing for disability or a retirement filing because they've turned 67 and they've had enough, they want their money and it's time to go. We put Medicare benefits in place on a daily basis. We file Medicaid applications and do the follow-up. Part of the problem with Medicaid has been that through the unwinding, which has lasted for 2 years, we have Medicaid applications that I have personally filed that should have been dealt with in 60 days that are outstanding from September of 2024 because the system is absolutely inundated at this point. And frankly, they're getting better. They're making some headway. I got letters about things from August of 2024 last week. So they are digging out, but they are still tremendously behind, which continues to cause us lots of angst and irritation. So regarding your question about the Social Security offices, if I had, could see the future, I wouldn't be an insurance agent and we would know all these things, but I will say this, I have been working with the Missoula and Kalispell offices. Like I go to the birthday parties of some of their kids from the Missoula office. I work with them that way. First of all, the Missoula, what was originally said was that the offices were going to be closed. That's not true. They're being moved to far more appropriate amounts of space. The Missoula office had a huge amount of square footage that was very expensive and no employees to support that. So they haven't closed the Missoula office and the plan is not to do that. But because so much of what used to have to be done by going to Hot Springs and getting people and taking them to Social Security can be done in my office or can be done remotely from my laptop. Certainly we do still have tribal members that have to go in and see somebody in person, but we've probably cut that off the top of my head, 85%, maybe a little higher than that. So we certainly manage and mitigate those. And when it's necessary, we put them in a GSA and we march on down to Missoula until we get it fixed.
Go ahead, Joe.
I just want to add one thing while it's still up on the screen. So the $3 million was not an additional budget or approval. It was a carve out of the PRC fund anyway. So that was the $14 million we had from PRC. So it's not a new budget or carve out an additional resource. It was kind of a carve out of that $14 million PRC budget we had in 2025. So.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. James, just one thing, like a fine wine, I thought maybe we got better with age, but that's not true. The chairman corrected me on that. Sometimes the ball can go real bad. But the question on the objectives, and that was, the list from when the start of the presentation was generating more revenue, third-party billing. So I guess how are we doing with that? Because, that's, how can we do more of that? I mean, sometimes I see you coming in here, Joe, and you're actually presenting things that aren't billable, that are programs that are absorbing costs and not creating an opportunity for more revenue. So I don't know where we're at with that. And the pharmacy issue of maybe opening up to the general public is always something that I always thought was interesting. But are there, as we focus with the expansion of this program, are we also focusing on providing more services that are billable so we can generate more revenue from this insurance?
We haven't taken on adding additional services other than intensive outpatient. And that's kind of a project kind of ongoing, and that's part of the space discussion. A way that we may be able to track that is in the report card I share with you every month. There's a section of that report card that shows how many of our encounters are covered by Medicaid, Medicare, how many are uninsured and are self-pay. So if I recall, I don't have the numbers. If I recall, the number of encounters that we have a Medicaid payer has increased. The number of self-pay payers has increased, and the number of Medicaid payers has decreased. Again, that's on that report card if you want to kind of dig back into that. The revenue, if we track the revenue actual collections, I believe, if I recall correctly, the Medicaid has gone down slightly. Medicare has gone up slightly. Medicare hasn't been a big payer of us. It's been a very small percentage of our payer population, probably 8 to 10%. Obviously, Medicaid is our single largest payer revenue source. So that may be a way to get an understanding of what the impacts of this has. A number of encounters with a Medicaid as the payer, Medicare as a payer has gone up. Revenue has slightly increased. You're right. So careful as we move forward. If we propose new service lines or new services, can we sustain them? Is there an opportunity for us to collect revenue off of those? I think that needs to be part of the information we provide you when we bring those requests in, or when you present requests to us to add or expand services. We should do the math on that to show you what the impact will be. Yes.
Do you have the numbers for, say the typical Medicare B client in their healthcare? What are they obtaining that Medicare is paying for in our demographics? I guess that's where I'd say, well, then we should be looking at providing those services so then we can be billable, and that goes to our third-party revenue. And that we should be focused on those things that are in demand by this population slug. I would assume also as we see Medicaid drop, you're going to be picking up more customers under Medicare B because they're losing their Medicaid if they're eligible.
Yeah. Medicare B, perhaps, they got to be 65 or older. I think the opportunity going forward, maybe the direction we're being guided to is marketplace insurance. So maybe an expanded effort to identify and enroll people on marketplace also.
If I may, Medicare Part B pays for all medical treatment regardless of where it's received. All of our tribal clinics and the vast majority of our tribal providers are Medicare certified. So if a tribal member wanders into any of the tribal clinics because they think they have bronchitis and they see a provider and we diagnose that, any of the medical treatments that tribal health clinics are capable of providing are Medicare allowable expenses. So all of those can be billed. So expanding the coverage helps certainly within the tribal health system, but it also then covers the incredible expense when we have to refer them out, because obviously there's a limit to what tribal health clinics can provide. So it's twofold there. But so blood work and x-rays and medical care is what it boils down to. All of those things. So any of the medical care that a tribal health clinic is capable of providing is billable through Medicare Part B.
Go ahead, James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Tom and I are filibustering today. Sorry, council and staff and everybody. My question, Tracy?
Yes.
Thank you, Tracy, and appreciate your experience. When I was an alternate resource specialist a million years ago, they didn't have Part D. Can you really quickly elaborate Part D? And I know it has to do with pharmacy. And then does it make any sense to have our folks on Part D? Do they get a penalty for that as well if they don't sign up for it, or is it optional? Never had an explanation on Part D, so.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you for the question. And if I may, as far as your question earlier about Part B, my staff and I make outbound calls. We begin 4 months out on somebody's, in the insurance industry, it's called a T65 date. Medicare takes effect on the first of the month that someone turns 65. So 4 months before that, we are making outbound specific calls to tribal members to have them come in so I can do their initial consultation. Because there are decisions they need to make based on timelines that they will never have again, because Medicare is generally not impacted by AIAN status because it was legislated before any of that took place. So you asked about how are we capturing people? Because we are certainly not saying to them they don't need it anymore. So I am doing, this month I have 43 appointments scheduled with new to Medicare tribal members who I will meet with. We will do Medicare 101 with them, explain to them how it interacts with tribal health, how it might interact with other benefit programs that they qualify for, and what the options that they have before them. My job is not to tell them what to do, is to tell them what they can do and what the deadlines by which they have to accomplish that are. Because some people do not get to 65 being healthy. And so there are deadlines for secondary insurance that are going to expire shortly after they turn 65 that they will never have again. And it's important they understand that. Part D is part of that consultation. Part D is designed to offset pharmaceutical coverage or its pharmaceutical expense. So for tribal members who certainly can come to tribal pharmacy, that's not something they've all had an experience with. But again, times change. Pharmacy is being more challenged for bringing in very expensive medications. And when I say very expensive, I was referred a tribal member a couple of months ago who has an incredibly rare situation. His life-saving maintenance medication is $10,000 a month for a 30-day supply of pills. Nobody can afford that. And Part D plans don't cover it, which doesn't mean you can't fix it. But so Part D plans, if you don't enroll them when you're originally effective for them, then yes, there can be a penalty that's assessed. But AIN status staves off that penalty. Theoretically. I spend a fair amount of time arguing with insurance companies about assessing that penalty because Medicare has 4 parts to it, A, B, C, and D. A and B are issued to you by the federal government, but C and D can only be gotten from private insurance companies. It's why an insurance agent has to be involved because a private insurance company won't talk to somebody else about the benefits for a tribal member. So if I meet AT 65, I absolutely discuss with them Part D plans. There is a Part D plan in the state of Montana this year that costs no money. There's no premium to it. And I explained to them, while they are always welcome to come to tribal pharmacy, if they're off the reservation, if they need a very expensive medication that for whatever reason tribal pharmacy cannot bring in, then a Part D plan puts them in a position to be able to get that medication at a spectacularly reduced price, quickly and easily. For no money, why would you take that risk? We have tribal members who have such a list of medications that it is financially a good idea to spend money to buy them a better plan because of their overall expense. I spend a fair amount of time making insurance companies comply with the penalties they cannot assess to an AIAN because insurance companies don't care. Makes no difference to them whatsoever. They assess a penalty, and if somebody doesn't go to battle over that, they're going to keep charging the penalty. It's like the penalty for Part B. It's called an equitable relief filing. I did lots of them. While we were rolling out Medicare Part B reimbursement, we also, during the first 3 months of this year, enrolled almost 40 tribal members who had been told at some point in the past that they did not need Part B. Some of them are very expensive as far as their penalty is concerned. But once we file for equitable relief and that's accepted, then it pulls back down their Part B. Also, if we can get them qualified for Medicaid, it waives the premium. And even if in the future they come off of Medicaid, the penalty never gets reassessed. So there is more than one way to skin the cat. And my staff and I are constantly trying to come up with other ways. To my point of the client with the $10,000 medication, it is the rarest medication I've ever seen. There are only 4 pharmacies in the country that can handle it. he had to take a 3-hour course on how to take it before they would release it to him. I mean, this was a project. But you know, there's almost always a foundation out there. So his copayment for that medication is $100 a month, but he has to get it off the reservation. You're welcome.
What are our thoughts? Are you done with your filibuster? Are we?
No, I could never be done. I just want to get, thank you for working so hard on this, providing Medicare B for our membership.
It is my pleasure.
Definitely for all the reasons it makes sense. It's saving money, providing expanded service to our membership. Makes sense to expand it. Again, I just would look at those things that we're not currently providing that might be an opportunity for us to increase that third-party revenue with this new item that we're paying for.
Are you ready to move to descendants and tribal members of other tribes that are registered on the reservation?
We can, if that's the direction, we can come back and start talking to you about numbers as we start developing that list, so you're aware. So it's not one action and we just do it. We'll try to bring in some numbers and report back to you kind of what we see is the potential cost and impact as we start gathering those numbers. So you're aware of how those numbers may be changing. We'll just make sure we get that information to you so you're well informed about the cost and number of people we are kind of bringing onto that list.
Yeah, that definitely will work. Turning the 720,000 into 70,000 is a nice thing.
I've never had anybody hate that kind of number, so.
Thank you, Joe.
All right.
Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up, Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and members of council. So I'm here, and thank you for your accommodation. I'm here to advocate for a couple of journal entries that require council approval. I'm advocating on behalf of Tony, my colleague, who's out doing a BIA visit. There's a handful of journal entries from his departments, the Forest Service, and some just moving some funds around, as well as one that's going to be on John Nice's calendar. What we're finding, remember, the policy says we're not doing journal entries that are older than 60 days. We're doing journal entries in the current and the previous month. And through their normal operations, they found some errors. We're asking them to clean them up, and they require council approval just because of their age. They've been reviewed. The ones that you're looking at right now is moving from Fund 2 to 12, moving from Program 6100 to 6240, and some other expenses the other direction. I've reviewed all of the journal entries. They make sense as far as cleaning up and improving our general ledger. And in advocacy of them, I'm happy to review each and every one of them with you or accept your direction to move forward with their approval.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, question, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thanks, Greg. Greg, so I guess in some of these journal entries, and it's not just particularly with these set with this program, but as we get to these and we find these rise to the top, so to speak, what are some of the mechanisms that we have in place to try and catch these before they is it part of the monthly certs that need to be done? Is some of the programs need to be better about that? Or can you elaborate a little bit about some of the things that next year we shouldn't see these?
Yep.
So
yes, sir, absolutely. So in these instances where we're moving between Fund 02 and Fund 12, we're working with the departments to make sure that the reports they're running for their monthly certification show that on their data sheet. If they're not seeing it on their data report, we're working with them to do that. So yes, monthly certification is the way we do that. But if we've got a report that's being run in the field that doesn't include the fund differential, then we wouldn't have otherwise caught it, which is why these are really These are really fine tuning and improving that. But the absence of monthly certification, the absence of reconciliation is where we're finding errors. The set that we'll talk about for facilities and maintenance are just because we're improving our tracking for certain SKMM task orders. So we're journal entering some expenses down into the sub account area for tracking. And those are all improvements to the general ledger, which is why I'm advocating for all four of them to happen. That's why I'm here.
You need a motion, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, we do.
Make a motion on, was there four of them?
There's three of them here.
Do you make a motion for all three or?
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to approve all three.
Motion by James to make the journal entry corrections for what departments is? Tony's? I think it was, you said it was for Tony?
I have three for Tony and one for facilities and maintenance, John Nice's group. And I think the one that you're not seeing is the one where Steve McDonald and I signed off on these from, that may not be in your packet.
Oh, okay, so it is for James. So we got a motion by James to make all four journal entries that are being recommended, second by Jimmy. All in favor? We're unanimous.
Thank you all.
So does that take care of John Nice's issues or we got more? Okay. I believe that's next.
Dan, I see there's lots of people backing you up. They're way behind you though.
Good morning, John. Dan?
Good morning. Task order 212. We are here today looking for approval of task order 212. It's a construction of the new Dewar building. And I'll let Dan give a intro on that. Shannon, can you bring that up for us? Yeah, I'll have a copy of the.
Lori said you have it. No?
I have a hard copy here that I can certainly share. Is there a way that we can share? Yeah, okay. Yeah. You want to bring that up? Okay, while we queue that up, good morning, Hesquex, Kisuk Witnam, everyone, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Tribal Council members. Again, always appreciate the opportunity to come before you and proposals in terms of important work that needs to be done across the infrastructure. We appreciate the opportunity to work with John and other department heads and directors and remain continually engaged with them and cooperative and communicative with them in terms of all projects that we've got going on. So we have task order 212 before you today. This is the Dewar bill, and I just want to give you a brief timeline in terms of how we got to the proposal that you will have before you today. We'll get there. Okay, there. So in terms of timeline, it's been essentially a 2-year process to get to this point. Started with, it'd be September of 23. Initial authority to proceed in terms of doing some legwork and some research on the building itself, which precipitated a task order 105, which is a discovery document. So that essentially took place from March of 24 to September 24 with engagement with stakeholders across the board in terms of doer, NRD, and F&M as well. So after that, that created that discovery document, came back before you all in October of 2024 for a request to do architecture engineering documents. From that was produced a 600-page document in terms of blueprints, all the essential details that are going to go into this building, and that was concluded in June of this year. And then that formulated an RFP that we had generated in reference to that RFP and that build. And what we had done out of that is we had solicited 8 general contractors to put bids on that, taking place in July. Of those 8 that we had solicited, we'd received 6 significant bids, qualified, reputable bids, reputable contractors. Included in that RFP was a master list of tribally preferred contractors that we've worked with and that are on our vendor database, and then also other local contractors that we've had experience with. So credit to the contractors that we had solicited with. They had reached out to those tribal subcontractors in addition to others. So we appreciated that. So there was engagement on their part in terms of the bids that they put forth and proposed to us. So we appreciate that. I think that's important for us as we grow and expand. Well, that list will continue in terms of tribal vendor, tribal contractor engagement from our part. Bids were due July 25th. We had a walkthrough. We evaluated those 6 that were submitted, additional negotiations with 2 contractors in particular. One, we did not engage with the lowest bidder for a couple of reasons. One, they had fewer tribal subcontractors than the others did. And then there was a history of change orders with that contractor that we weren't necessarily comfortable with moving forward with. So engaged in negotiations with 2 of the next lowest bidders who had an equal number of tribal subcontractors engaged with a commitment to engage with more tribal subcontractors if possible. They had received 9 bids at the over 20 bids solicited. 2 tribal subcontractors. There were 9 that were received. Some of them competing against each other, right? And then some that were incomplete, that were disqualified, and others that were significantly higher than other bidders. So 3 things that we keep in mind: cost, right? Quality, schedule, in terms of bid evaluation. So that brings us here today before you in terms of the task order 212 proposal that we have before you. And again, our key objectives is successful task completion, which we've had a significant amount of success. Engage, promote, and support tribal employees and your staff, tribal programs, and tribal entrepreneurs. And we continue to do that, and we will continue to do that. So before you today, we have task order 212. And a pretty rigorous schedule that we're looking and hoping to get started soon.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. We had the variety of tribal contractors in bending our ear last week. And so my question is just a general question, and I think you've elaborated a little bit about how you try to engage with those folks. To the extent possible, as we hire different folks, contractors and such, particularly, we have non-member contractors that we're going to have do some of this work. Is there ways that we can, and the vice chairman brought this up last week, and I think you made a motion today, right, on that issue, is trying to figure out how can we, I'm trying to figure out my diplomacy today a lot, squeeze those guys to say, hey, if you have a general laborer job, can you make sure if we have available tribal members that could do that, can you at least make that available? Those type of things. And it may not be general labor, but if possible, I know other tribes that I've been around and such, that they will put the screws to those companies and say, look, you're going to hire this tribal member and you're gonna X, Y, and Z. And sometimes we don't do that as vigorously as sometimes we possibly can. And I'm not pointing fingers at you guys, but just us collectively as a tribe. And how can SKMM or SKT and we as a tribe, when we, well, number one, when we have those tribal member workers that are willing to work and show up and pass the drug test and all of those things, but they're willing to work, they're able to work, and they just need that opportunity. The other thing too is the vocational aspect of our society. It seems like education is just kind of, you know, it's always focused on those academic realms, but then a lot of our high paying individuals are in those vocational type of trades. You know, Jimmy spent a lifetime welding and you did underwater and those kind of things. He's mentioned that a lot of times. How do we make sure, you know, it's kind of a bigger question than what I'm asking here, but how do we make sure there's that pipeline, or how do we, maybe these companies, we say, look, we're gonna get you this multi-million-dollar contract, but how about you set up a training program for tribal members that we have that are interested in this and not just rely on SKC, or maybe we've given this particular company over the years quite a bunch of business, if I'm not mistaken. Why don't we tell them, hey, we're going to give you this contract, but how about you be working on some kind of, I don't know, I'm just kind of talking off the hat, and I'm not, please don't anybody take it as an accusation or anything. I'm just trying to, we're as council members, we're always faced with this. How do we get our tribal members trained? But we have this big amount of funds. How do we get, I lost track of a tribal member recently that he's kind of one of those ones that's on that substance use disorder path. And I've talked to him quite often. I couldn't find him. I was worried about him. Well, he's over across the street at our motel there with the iron bars and 3 squares a day. So I'm glad he's okay. But anyway, sorry everyone for rambling. It's my day for rambling.
No, thank you for the comment, Mr. Steele, and I just, I'll respond to that and then turn it back over to John in terms of additional context. It's just having intentional conversations about those opportunities, right? And we really leveraged the generals in this case in terms of communicating, engaging with tribal subcontractors to the point of that will be a factor in the decision making in terms of who gets this contract. So again, in terms of laborers and internship opportunities, it's just having intentional conversations with those folks in terms of those opportunities. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan, for that. Appreciate it.
And the contractors, we did pick Langless, has agreed to, if they needed additional help, on-site help, that they would work with CSKT and SKMM for the development of workers. Also, I know the last big job we did, which was a clinic, Ronan Health Clinic, we did get them into the schools and invited the shop classes over a couple times during construction so the kids could get a feel for it. And I thought it was pretty beneficial. The school thought it was beneficial. So we are trying to work the company to help our area out and our people
Thanks,
out.
John. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other remarks or questions? Entertain a motion for task order 212. Move forward with this Dewar building. Motion by Tom. Second by James. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, John.
Chad, I don't know if you're a Mariners fan or not, but you were looking aghast at my hat for some reason.
Have a good day. Is Scott still here and Bob? Scott and Bob? Morning, Scott. Come on up. Morning, Bob.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Do you got good news?
I'm sorry to say I don't.
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, I'm here today with, to provide a copy of the official letter from Mr. Smith, who is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy for the U.S. Department of Transportation. And it is, as you can see, as it's being passed around, the MDT did receive this memo. It's the rescission of unobligated NE funds. So we did get formal documentation. Honestly, I was kind of surprised that we did. But it came in last week and I wanted to bring it down. Last time I was in front of the council, there was question was asked, did we have anything to actually confirm this, or was there still a glimmer of hope somewhere? And unfortunately, I've removed all glimmer. So I wanted to come down and deliver the letter in person, though. Also, Beth and Ellen have come with me. If you're looking for any, we can answer questions about where we are with the projects, what's going on with the 4 projects, I guess, out on Highway 93, or I can stand for any other questions about stuff going on with the highway department. We've got other work going on, but unfortunately I gave Mr. Schmidt the day off. So if it's much for construction related, I'll have to probably give you I'll find out an answer and get back in touch with you, but he's out enjoying the lake with some college buddies, so.
We got questions? Go ahead, James.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you for coming in. I appreciate, I back on council for just a short time, but I sure appreciate you coming in and just your reports and answering our tough questions and all of that. Unfortunately, you're kind of the after messenger because we're already, I'm like, oh man, we're kind of talking this morning. We've seen you on the agenda. I'm like, oh man, he's going to give us the story that we already heard. Can you elaborate just in general what this impact does to your agency in particular? And then my second question is, can you elaborate a little bit what can be done with that nearly $12 million realistically on this project?
You bet, Mr. Chairman, Councilman. Great questions. Maybe I'll take it in reverse order. With the 11, almost $12 million, what our plan is, we're still working with our partners with the consultant, and I'm gonna look to Ellen to correct me if I misstep here, but our goal is to carry the design and get as much of this project designed as what we can, so we have a solid bid package to take forward when we do find funding, instead of getting ourselves kind of in the situation we have at Post Creek, where we have funding that didn't align with what we could actually perform, because we were operating on just extremely rough, barely raw or magnitude
type estimates. So we've had, the last time I was here, we talked about how we had to shorten the project yet again to align the project to the funding we received. Well, with this project for the 9 Pipes project going forward, if we can get to where we have enough design to be able to start purchasing right away, we can start getting right away bought while we're still looking for funding potentially. But also when we go forward with a more of a traditional design bid build project, we'll have a better understanding of what we're going to build, what we need to build, and what it should cost to build. So then when we are pursuing other funding sources, whether that's grants or other kinds of discretionary funding, grants, earmarks, whatever may be opportunities for us to team up to go after, we'll have a better idea of securing the right amount of money to support the whole project. Or we can say, hey, this project is expensive enough, we need to break it into maybe a couple smaller projects, a little more bite-sized pieces, so that we can go after, we can better fit the project to the funding we think we can obtain. So does that answer?
Yeah, well, but now I got one more question to add to the list. So Bob, with this was $63 million impact upon our local area here in Western Montana. Do you have anecdotally any of you all anecdotally the economic impact that could have had upon our Western Montana economy, our tribal economy, jobs, the impact on local establishments? I ate lunch at the 44 yesterday with my cousin. That place could have benefited from folks needing lunch or something. 9 Pipes, different things that those workers take advantage of that is not going to be there now, let alone the practical application of a safer and better highway that is in much need of deferred maintenance for a while. Can you address that anecdotally? I know you don't have the numbers. We're kind of reading tea leaves here, but pretend we're reading Earl Grey tea leaves. I'm sorry, I digress.
Again, great question. Really challenging question. So I've been with the agency for almost 30 years now, playing most of it in the construction realm. There's no doubt a significant impact of a project like this, the $60 million in construction, what that looks like to a local economy. I'm not sure that I can give you numbers, as you said, but it definitely would be putting a lot of individuals to work locally right here. The construction companies are going to find other work, but what it means is that it's not going to be right near your members' homes. There's going to be work, but it likely won't even be in Montana, the work that those contractors will find to backfill that. The team that's building, it's a joint venture between Schillinger and Sunt. Schillinger obviously does a lot of work right here already today. They will continue to perform work. They're a great local Northwest Montana company that I've been working with for a long time. I think many of you know them. Sunt is a firm from out of state that's looking to get a foothold in Montana, which is a good thing for the state of Montana. Additional contractors, additional competition, keeps our prices low, makes everybody sharpen the pencil a little bit when they're putting the estimate together and bidding on our work. So there's some definite benefits to that. One thing that depending on the company you talk to, it is interesting. We all know there's a positive impact of putting people to work while construction is taking place. But I will tell you that I don't know that I ever remember receiving a phone call during construction from a business saying, thank you for putting people to work. But I do receive calls every week about how I'm crushing their business because of the construction taking place. So there's a little give and take is where I'm going with that. So it would be highly impactful, the work that's going to take place when we build it, but I think everybody understands. There's a lady that I work with, owns a PI company here in Western Montana, and her analogy doesn't work as well for me as what it does for her, but she always says it's, you know, road construction is kind of like pregnancy, where there's a short-term pain for a long-term gain. So I think it's relatable, but she delivers it way better than I do. Boy, that was a terrible pun too.
Keep your day job.
I'll try. Overall, the impact to MDT, the one thing that I will say is we were, Mr. Schmidt, who's been here with me many times, our construction engineer, he was really scrambling, trying to figure out, because this is funds that were outside of our normal program, what we're built for, if you will. We're built to deliver 80 to 120, 130 million dollars in construction. That's kind of the range that we have in the Missoula district every year for the last 10, 15 years. It goes up and down a little bit. Well, with the projects out here, we're going to basically double that. So he and I have been having a lot of discussions on what does it look like to ramp this up? How are we going to start hiring people? And we've started to kind of project what some of this looks like. This is, and it's going to create some interesting challenges. We've got to pump the brakes a little bit, but we don't want to pump them too hard right now. We do have a bunch of retirements coming in front of us. So there's going to be changes. So trying to navigate it, it's yet another bump in the road that we have to figure out how to navigate. I'm hopeful that we're able to work together and find another funding solution for these critical projects. What that time frame looks like is going to be challenging. We'll see. There's, you know, I'm sure you're hearing the same things that we are, that there still will be discretionary funds. What they might look like, they're going to change. The buzzwords are going to change like they do every time there's a change in an administration. The one thing I'll say out here is that I think we all feel that these projects are critical, and I really don't care what the buzzwords are, because we're going to be able to demonstrate that this project's important from whichever angle you want to look at it. This is an important project. These are a series of really critical projects to Western Montana. So I think that we'll continue to be competitive. Right now, I'm focusing heavily within the funding challenges that I have on safety and resiliency. Well, two more buzzwords that these projects align with, you know, so I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to continue to work together and find another solution. I think this is going to be a delay. Hopefully it's not a very long-term delay. Yeah, that's a great point, Scott. And that is, we had the discussion in our meeting last week with the $12 million getting this project designed to that point. One of the buzzwords that we're hearing about right now is there'll be more of an emphasis on shovel-ready projects. Well, if we get this thing, as the further along in design are, the closer we are to being shovel-ready. So I guess trying to put a positive spin on losing the money right now, I think it could allow us to be competitive. And, you know, based on what we encountered at Post Creek Hill, we had a project this big originally, and we asked for this much funding, and we got half the funding that we asked for. So we trimmed the project, and then we had to, as we continue to refine the design, we've actually trimmed the project again off of both ends of the initial trimming. So hopefully with this project, we can figure out what the real ask needs to be to make sure we're securing it and get it done. So I think there is some potential that again, it's yet another delay and a long time coming project, but I think that we can be well positioned in the future with where we're going.
Tom, you had your hand up earlier.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming in today and thank you for bringing in the verification in black and white that crushed my hopes for Highway 93. So yeah, you got a great, job that provides such a great service for us as our transportation in this area. And I thought, as the chairman and I were driving yesterday, we left early in the morning, drove all the way up to Libby, and then around Lake Kookanusa, up to Eureka and back down. As I looked at that, it was a peak summer day, and I'm looking at the level of service or the number of cars that were driving the routes that we were on. And then as they came back and got to Polson and drove from Polson to Ronan, I had to run down to St. Ignatius, and I looked at that highway, from Ronan to St. Ignatius, and thought of just the sheer number of cars on it. And we drove along the shores of Lake Kookanusa, run into very few cars, but they're redoing the bridges all over that country up there. And I thought, wow, man, how can we not get funding for this section of the highway with threatened endangered species on it, critical wildlife habitat, the level of vehicle use that's on it, the level of service that's declining, and pedestrian issues, and just all these things. How can we not, get funding for that? So having something that's shovel ready, I think is always, it's right there ready to go, and funding appears. That's a great thing to be able to do. But I don't know how we can collaborate to make sure this gets on the priority to finish our people's way and to have something safe for all things considered in this beautiful valley. Just appreciate your help, Bob.
I'm jealous of your drive yesterday. That's one of my favorite loops to make. A lot of that you're out of cell coverage too, so nobody can pester you. Not that I would happen to know that and you take advantage of that occasionally, but no, that's a beautiful drive, and it's a great, a great point that interesting fact about the chunk of road that you're on up there on Highway 37 along the lake. That's the first time that we've done any paving on that since it was originally paved in 1974. So taxpayers got their dollars worth on that chunk of asphalt to get it to last for 50 years. But great point. I just was reviewing within the last few weeks our data on ride and rut data that we compile every year for the roads in Montana, and Highway 93. It's a beast. I jokingly refer to it as I-93 when I'm talking to my counterparts, because it carries more traffic than most of the interstates in Montana. I mean, it carries more traffic than I-15 does, but we don't have the funding support that you do with an interstate highway. It's still national highway, so there's a lot of funding, but we're carrying damn near twice the traffic is what that chunk of interstate is. So huge challenge. I think everybody knew that these were some really challenging projects, and the people that were in front of me nominating projects, they took the low-hanging easy stuff first and they left the really tough stuff for last, and here we are. So I really appreciate the partnership and the work together. The fact that CSKT was able to obtain the grants that we have already, that's huge, because trying to navigate through the funding without your help would be that much more difficult. So again, I greatly thank you for that hard work and commitment as well.
Go ahead, Len.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, and once again, Bob, thank you for visiting us this morning. I just want to quickly mention, in the past years, we've met with MDOT. We've discussed previous flaws that we've had in the highway through the previous segments of Highway 93 that have been completed. Some of them have been housing, our turnoff into housing. As you all know, the turnoff into housing is in the passing lane, right? And then we have the junction of Old Highway 93 and Highway 93 just right outside of town here that was identified as a potential problem. So I'm just kind of curious, has funding been obligated or set aside to address those issues?
Mr. Chairman, council member, great questions. I believe it was last fall, when we had a discussion and I had made a commitment to have someone look into those. There was a couple intersections also, turning lane, I believe south between Evero and Arlea as well that we looked at. And so our traffic group took a look at it. They looked at crash history and they looked at traffic counts. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record. It's a funding based, funding plays a huge portion in it. And due to the limited funds that we do have in Western Montana, I've taken on basically looking at it from a safety standpoint. So we're addressing crash trends as we can, and looking at utilizing a benefit cost ratios where thank God I don't have to do it, but someone has there's values that are used for different types of crashes. A property damage only crash where it's a fender bender and only metal gets hurt versus minor injury versus serious injury versus fatality. Those values are all part of that equation for a BC ratios that are developed. And so we've added all of the intersections of concern to our list. Depending on how you want to look at it, I'm going to say fortunately, none of those have a high BC ratio. The reason I say fortunately is because that means we don't have people getting seriously injured or killed at those intersections, where we do have other intersections in District 1 and statewide where that's not the case, and we do have some serious injury, fatal crash trends being developed. So we have to focus on where accidents are happening first. I have yet to figure out a good way to share the message, but I can't spend money to fix crashes that I think could happen at the cost of not fixing intersections where I know crashes are happening, if that makes sense. It's not the message anyone wants to hear. But I will tell you, it's the reason why there's a lot of intersections of need. I sat down last week before a different public meeting, and Rebecca Anderson and Aldo from our traffic engineers from Kalispell and Missoula, the three of us sat down, and in about 10 minutes, we had 38 intersections that we know are high crash trend intersections that we have to address, and we can afford to fix 2, 3, maybe 4 a year. So we've got a really long list of needs, and it's what I want to do is continue to keep the intersections of concern on our list, looking for opportunities. Is there something that we can do short term? If we have another project in the area, what I really don't want to do is I don't want to take those intersections that are intersections of concern that aren't high on the BC list and have a project go through the area where we have a good opportunity where we can improve it. I want to make darn sure that we're improving those when we're in the area working other types of projects, because that would really, I mean, it's all about maximizing the dollars we have.
I understand that, Bob, and it may not be on MDOT's top list, but it's on our top list.
Yeah, absolutely.
To bring it up, but I understand what you're saying. I don't like the answer, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, and I appreciate that. So again, I just want to, again, Mr. Chairman, thank you, council, for allowing me the time to interact too. It's important for MDT for us to be able to hear the concerns, because I drive through here a lot, but I don't live here every day like you do. So it's important to hear that as well.
Other questions? Oh, professional filibuster. Len, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
Scott,
mariners hat.
Scott, just on a side note, I had tribal elder Cal Tanner reach out to me. He lives up there on Beaverhead Lane, just across from the scenic turnout. And he informed me yesterday that the buses will not go all the way across the bridge. Okay, as far as I know, the county's not addressing this. This is something where we may need to step in and if you can take a look at the bridge and figure out what we need to do to address that situation so we can get the school buses back there to pick up the kids. So, thank you.
Anything else for Bob or? Beth or who we have? Beth and Ellen? Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you. I don't know. I don't like your letter.
Thanks again. Have a great day.
You too. And be safe. Good afternoon, Greg. Sorry, it's
Good afternoon. This will be the audit presentation by REDW. It should take about 30 or 35 minutes. Do you want to take a break or do you want us to dive right in?
Let's go.
This should be an executive where we have the open conversation and then we'll come out and you can accept the audit.
Perfect. We'll go out of regular into executive. I'll need a motion to accept the audit. Motion by Len. Second by James. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
We have unanimous. Thank you, Chris. Alex, John.
Mr. Chair, thank you all.
One question for Greg. So this is the last year with these folks, or then what do we do? Then we'll have a advertisement for.
So
proposals,
we are engaging with REDW through the 2025 audit, which means that, you know, here within 45 days, we'll be done with 2025. We'll tidy up our accounts and send them off to these smiling faces. Our objective is to get through the 2025 audit. So in next year, when they provide their report, it'll be the last year of that agreed upon engagement. But we are getting ready to do the RFP in the upcoming calendar year that will allow the tribes to demonstrate good fiduciary responsibility to get good external audit opinions. REDW may be selected for that, no promises, but I just want to make sure I'm being fully candid with you. And I would like to also thank somebody who's on the call here, Linda Putney, as our external CPA. And I'd like to thank her for her guidance and support of this process. She's a valuable part of the team and the component in all of this processing. So I want to thank her too as well.
Len?
Also, before we conclude here, I just want to quickly acknowledge our staff. They were the main players here that were able to put all these numbers together for this report. And I just want to thank all of you guys for the hard work that you guys all did on this. I know a lot of it gets tedious, but it needs to be done. And I appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you all. Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I just wanted to acknowledge the sudden passing of a tribal elder in the Kootenai community. Yesterday, we lost Tom Antiste, and as many of you know, Tom was not only one of our community leaders, one of our chiefs, but he was a veteran. And it's a huge loss for our community, and I want to ask the council if we can keep the flags lowered at half mast through the remainder of the week. We're going to lay Tom to rest on Saturday. And if we could just keep the flags at half mast until then, I know the family would greatly appreciate that and thank the council for that. But I just think it's important because, you know, as I mentioned, Tom was a veteran. And last of, I don't want to say the last, but he's one of the few of our last speakers that we had. And our language speakers. And so it's, I just wanted to, on behalf of the family, just acknowledge his passing. So thank you.
Appreciate that, Lynn. Jennifer, you had an issue.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a trip report of my trip to Billings last Friday for the State Economic Tribal Development meeting. And I just wanted to, I don't have my notes in front of me, but on October 1st, the applications will be open for tribal businesses to apply for a tribal tourism grant. And it's a $10,000 grant that does not require a match for any tribally owned business on the reservation that has anything to do with tourism. And then sometime in the very near future, applications will be open for the small business grants for tribal people, and those grants are $14,000. And I just wanted to I wanted that to be in the minutes so the membership has a heads up about those two grant opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Jennifer?
Did you guys have anything specific for the chairman's meeting? Did you guys want any certain departments from your guys' discussion this week? Because right now I have Lisa Shores as an update, unless you guys want me to put Tony and Lisa to change Mondays.
Yeah, we do need to talk to Tony. James, you got a question?
Yeah, did you visit with being on the election committee stuff?
That was gonna be as soon as.
As soon as, okay, so just me and Bing and
Yeah, Mike.
Mike, okay.
We're adjourned. Thank you all. And remember, there is a barbecue, a Mexican barbecue, Saturday.
Sorry for filibustering, council.
And there's a fundraiser, Indian Tacos at Quicksilver for Billy Hartung for her cancer fundraiser.